I knew the movie had failed when people in the theater started laughing, including me. It was not the nervous laughter that comes when you're scared. It was actual laughter, unfortunately, the kind that comes when you're watching a funny scene. The only problem was, the scene was not supposed to be funny at all. It was the climax. We were supposed to be watching with our mouths open, tense, on the edge of our seats. Sad, considering I'm talking about The Housemaid, based on the best-selling novel of the same name by Freida McFadden and directed by Paul Feig, who gave us a simple favor. Hello, this is Shubhra, and you're watching Twisted, where every story draws you deeper into darkness. I read several rave reviews of the movie, and being a total suspense film buff, I booked my tickets, settled in, and armed myself with a tub of popcorn. The plot is delicious, no doubt. A desperate young woman looking for a job, a charming lady who gives her a grand tour of her picture-perfect house, and soon an offer that feels too good to be true. And of course, it is too good to be true. The new housemaid, Millie, senses that something is off about the house, the people, the atmosphere. But she has secrets of her own, far too terrible to reveal. Her life is in ruins. She's broke, isolated. Any job would seem better than sleeping in her car, skipping meals, and just trying to survive. At first, this job does feel like salvation. But, and isn't there always a but, things begin to unravel. Her employer, Nina, is erratic, unpredictable. One day, she's warm, almost friendly. The next, she's screaming, throwing things, issuing bizarre accusations, and then acting as though none of it ever happened. It's deeply unsettling, and the film smartly locks us into Millie's perspective. Is Nina unwell? Is she dangerous? The house itself starts to feel like a character, especially Millie's room, claustrophobic, with its unopenable window and keyless deadbolt. Then there are the rules. Rules announced suddenly, unreasonably. There's a child who seems straight out of a 90s horror movie, saying strange things, staring too long, looking like she's just wandered out of a seance, and hanging over everything is the attic, ominous, heavy with implication. This is where the film genuinely shines. It pulls you into its secrets, teasing you to unlock them. The performances here deserve credit. Sydney Sweeney brings real vulnerability to Millie, and Amanda Seyfried is genuinely electric as Nina, veering between fragility and menace with ease. The only breath of fresh air seems to be Nina's husband, played by Brandon Sklenar, handsome, calm, and astonishingly tolerant of his unhinged wife. He's patient, rational, reassuring. He explains Nina away. He expresses concern for her and increasingly for Millie. Slowly, the film shifts your loyalties. You start questioning Nina. You start trusting him. You start wondering whether Millie is being drawn into something far more dangerous than she realizes. And all this time, you're not entirely sure Millie is who she seems to be either. For a good while, this tension works beautifully. You're alert. You're guessing. You're constantly reassessing what you think you know. But then come the sequences that make you say, hello, isn't this a bit much? The punishments and consequences being meted out in this house are so absurd that no one in their right mind would accept them. Honestly, having a tooth pulled would feel preferable to some of the things demanded here. And by the way, at one point in the film, a tooth is pulled out, without anesthesia, mind you. That's when the plot begins to lose its grip. My first proper eye roll came when, after a major incident of mental torture, the victim simply stayed. I won't tell you whether that was Nina, Millie, or the husband, but the behavior was deeply unconvincing. And it continued, not once, but again and again, which is what dragged the story down and further down. Then there is the groundkeeper, Enzo. In the book, he had a meteor role. Here, he's a strange appendage of a character. He feels like someone the director added to oblige a relative. I thought that only happened in Bollywood, but here we are. He trims hedges, he mumbles vague warnings, and then nothing. He doesn't intervene, he doesn't help, he doesn't change anything. He exists purely for atmosphere, or maybe for his looks. Now, without getting into spoilers, this is where the logic completely collapses for me. At a certain point, I couldn't stop asking, why doesn't Nina just leave? She has opportunities. Her husband is away often. Escape feels entirely possible. Running away with her daughter, changing cities, even countries, makes far more sense than the elaborate, high-risk plan the film wants us to accept instead. The same issue applies to Millie. Yes, she is desperate. Yes, she needs stability, but the film stretches her desperation to a point where it stops feeling human. Sleeping in a car, not eating, living on the brink, all of that would be infinitely safer than staying in a house that radiates danger from every corner. And the husband, how does he put up with a wife this deranged? Deranged enough to have allegedly tried drowning her own child? His ultra-forgiving love makes little sense, especially after Millie sees Nina emerge holding a blood-stained knife with the husband standing right behind her. At this point, the characters stop behaving like people and start behaving like pieces being moved to serve the plot. The romantic thread doesn't help. It's too smooth, too convenient. It arrives exactly when the story needs it to, and faces no real emotional or practical resistance. And then there's the house again. Early on, it feels alive. People come and go. There's a sense of a wider social world. Later, that world disappears completely. No visitors, no questions, no consequences. Characters vanish the moment they are no longer useful. By the final act, the tone shifts entirely. What's meant to shock becomes excessive. What's meant to disturb becomes absurd. In the theater, like I said, people weren't gasping, they were laughing. I was probably laughing the hardest. It reminded me of those old pulpy films where the villain keeps popping up, seemingly indestructible, no matter how many times he's battered. If the film was going to descend into this ketchupy mess, why bother spinning such elaborate plans in the first place? The climax was so implausible that it tipped fully into unintentional comedy. And that's the real disappointment, because the film had the bones of something genuinely unsettling. The setup works, the mood works, and the actors, especially early on, are very good. Which makes the failure more surprising, given that the director, Paul Feig, previously handled dark glamour and twisted female dynamics far more sharply in A Simple Favor. Compared to that, this film feels messy, loud, and far less controlled. Instead of tightening its ideas, it piles on increasingly unbelievable twists until logic completely collapses. Considering the rave reviews, I found this film deeply overrated. Engaging in parts, yes, but sloppy, overstuffed, and emotionally hollow. And I was genuinely surprised to learn that a sequel is already in the works. Because if the story struggled to hold together for one film without spiraling into absurdity, I'm not sure what more there is to explore. If you watched The Housemaid, let me know what you thought. And if you haven't, well, now you know what I thought.